But we went down and found our seats, and then they dimmed the lights, and out walks Jamestown. And I had no idea who they were. Nobody did. So they come out, and it's just Zach and John, and then they had a friend of ours, I'm going to say playing drums, but it's like kind of a conservative way of putting it. Like he had like a kick drum and a tambourine. He's kind of like holding down the beat.
Oh, okay.
And the music was very similar to another group that I had worked in. I was like, man, I haven't heard this kind of music in a while. And it's something that makes sense inside of me, if you will. And I was like, okay, I'm on their wavelength. I get this. And this style of music right now is not super prevalent in Los Angeles, and we could use this. This is great. But I had noticed that they didn't have a bass player. And, side note, like I have a little bit of a, I guess you could call it like a pet peeve of bands that don't have bass players. I'm not saying that because I make a living doing that, but it just for some reason makes me feel a sense of anxiety and uneasy. So when I was at that show and they didn't have the bass, I was like, oh, they're not doing this on purpose. Like it must be that scenario that I talked about a second ago where their bass player missed a flight or broke their arm or couldn't make it or is double booked or whatever. And, they only came out and played 4 songs. But halfway through the second song, because I had played that show before and I knew the promoters, I was already texting them like, hey, Chris, I'm at the show. These Jamestown dudes are great. And I'd love to have a conversation with them. Not because I like wanted to elbow my way into like be their bass player, but I just thought, and my initial email to them was like, hey guys, sorry to see that your bass player like couldn't make it. I would love to at least just like put my name on the list as a sub, so that in the event that a show like this happens again, you're not left high and dry.
Nice, yeah.
And cue my last name of Bearden helped stick out like a sore thumb when that came through their email, because they're like, wait, there's a dude with the last name Bearden in the show, and he's are we related to this guy? Like, what's going on? So we start opening a dialogue, and the very next day we go to Chick-fil-A, which I'd never been to before, and over some fried sandwiches, they're talking about like what they've got going on in their headspace and musicality of kind of ideas they had. And we went back to my studio and I played them some stuff that I had done, and just it vibed, you know? And so we just kind of were like, well, shit, I think maybe we should get together and jam over some shit. And so they came up to the house, and I don't know if you ever came to that Hollywood Hills place, but I kind of had a little jam spot set up, and we just kind of goofed around on some tunes, and it clicked. And initially they wanted me to play drums for them because that dude that was at the show wasn't a drummer.
Oh, wow.
You know? And they're like, we don't really need bass. Like, we kind of want some percussion to hold us all together. And I was like, for as much as I know what I can and can't do, I don't think that I'm the right fit for this, for one. And for two, I also, I don't want to make it seem like it was super calculated, but there was a part of me that was like, okay, for right now, this is kind of a baby band. And I knew, having worked with so many artists in LA before, that there was a little bit of a snowball effect and a trajectory. And like you said, like you kind of start playing shows at the Room 5. Well, you're not going to really be bringing your drum set, even though I have before the Room 5. Most 9 out of 10 gigs, the Room 5 are going to be acoustic. So I was like, if I'm on drums, I'm not playing that gig. If we're doing this thing, I'm not doing that gig. If we're doing this thing, I'm not doing this gig. But if I hop in on bass, I can be a lot more, is it malleable, pliable? Whatever the word is I'm looking
malleable.
for. Yeah.
Sure.
I can maybe...
More useful to the operation.
Yeah. I was like, I can bring the pedal steel to this gig and play that, or I can play acoustic or mandolin or baritone or bass, and like a lot more diversity with what the show would call for. And I also knew, it's like no disrespect to the other bass players, but I had worked with a lot of dudes in town, and I thought, okay, they might bring what they do to this band, but it might not be what like necessarily Jamestown needs from kind of a soul level.
Okay, yeah.
And I, if I can kind of toot my own whatever, I felt like I got where they wanted to go. And then when we did kind of jam stuff together, they were always like, yeah, that's the thing. Yes, cool. Do that. Yes, do that. And it was always kind of like the first gut instinct of what melodic idea I had, or tone thing, or like where to play or where not to play. It seemed like it just fit.
Cool.
And I figured, when the time comes and we scale things out and a drummer is needed, we'll like cross that bridge when we get to it.